Alright, hey everybody, Peeve here. I am actually in Cologne, Germany right now, which is why I don't know how this is going to sound. I'm recording with the mic on my new laptop, so it might be a bit echoey. But anyway, I'm going to get to the point. Namco flew me out here to go to Gamescom and to try out Dark Souls 3 hands-on. It's been an amazing experience. Germany is awesome. I've come to realize how much they love sausage, sparkling water, and exit signs and bakeries. They're all over the place. Anyway, I've loved my stay here, and before I get into everything, I just wanted to personally express my gratitude and thanks to all of you, because if it wasn't for all the support over the years and the viewership and everything, I wouldn't have these insane opportunities presented to me. So I am more than grateful for everything you guys have done for me leading up until this point, and I will continue to be grateful for it. So thank y'all very much. But yeah, getting to what you're probably watching the video for. I got to play Dark Souls 3. A while back, we also got flown out to E3 for the first gameplay reveal, which wasn't shown to the public, and we said it looks a lot like Dark Souls 1. And after playing it, it is most certainly Dark Souls 1, built upon Dark Souls 1, which for me, that's a relief. I know a lot of people who are into like Dark Souls 2, like a lot, are gonna probably be kind of bummed out about it. But they did bring back, there are quite a few of the changes Dark Souls 2 brought in, that are, that they decided to keep in terms of like, for instance, you can like roll out of gestures. In another example of Dark Souls 2 changes that they decided to bring back, you can drink Estus on ladders, and it seems you can even pop souls on ladders. You can consume souls while on ladders. So yeah, they're definitely bringing quite a bit of the improvements from Dark Souls 2 into Dark Souls 3. But it is very much so Dark Souls 1 movement and combat by all means. But yeah, anyway, getting into it, I posted on Reddit that I had some things to test out for you guys, and I wanted some suggestions of what to test. So I kept a list of all of this, and I went in and I tested as much stuff as I possibly could. And basically, here's what I got. First off, I'm going to go off some of the stuff that I had already posted on Reddit. Ravioli step seems to be gone. I can't make it happen. I don't know why. It just seems like it doesn't work anymore. It's either whenever I try to do it, I just backstep in the direction I'm trying to backstep in, or I would be backstepping in, or I end up turning around and rolling the direction that I'm trying to change to. So ravioli step seems to be gone. Sunlight blade tested reverse roll, and reverse roll seemed to also be gone. I don't think it was extensively tested, but so don't take that as final. But I tested dead angles, which I believe they should work in PvE. If so, they don't work in Dark Souls 3. If there's something that online would bring in, we didn't get to. There's no PvP involved in the demo, so that might be something that comes into play later on. But as far as we know, in terms of working in PvE, dead angles do not work. And like I said, I don't remember if they even worked in PvE to begin with. But anyway, toggle escaping doesn't seem possible. That seems to be out as well. As for poise, we weren't able to determine anything involving poise. We're getting staggered by shots, like arrows. There was no inventory. We couldn't access our inventory or anything like that. There was a HUD, which it was confirmed in the presentation, or it was said in the presentation that that is more or less a placeholder at the moment. So don't take that. Don't take the HUD that you've seen in gameplay as final. But as far as poise goes, we couldn't test anything because whatever armor set we had on seemed to be very low poise. So that being said, let's see. I'm just going through the list of things I had listed on Reddit. Hyper armor. Hyper armor is back. There's a move called the lunge stance, I believe. It's with the greatsword. It's the sword art for the greatsword, which you hit L2 while you're two-handing it, and you do like a forward lunge, like he like stomps into the ground. In that stomp, during that stomp, you have hyper armor. The character can't get staggered. So hyper armor is certainly back, and there even seems to be moves built around it. For instance, that lunge attack, it seems very reliant on it. So yeah, hyper armor is certainly back. Also, there is no stats in the demo, so don't ask me anything about stats. I don't know a thing about stats. What else? The backstab window. I tried to test it. I heard other people say that it got severely reduced. I'm not too sure. I'm actually not too sure. I tested on some enemies that weren't moving. They were like stationary, and you had to like you could just walk right up to them. Like imagine the hollows in New Londo that you could just they're like um, they're praising stuff like on their knees, and you could walk up and just backstab them. They had some enemies similar to that. So I was testing the backstab window on them, and to me, if the cone of the backstab window is plus or minus 60 degrees, as Illusory Wall discovered it to be in Dark Souls 1, I would be inclined to say that this is 40 degrees, plus or minus 40 degrees. So it's almost like they trimmed 20 degrees off. So that's what I would say, but whether or not I would consider that like a drastic change, I don't know. We just have to wait for like PvP to see how it affects it. I also had I believe don't take my word on this, but I believe Dreaded Cone and them said that there was like an attack that you like whenever you go to backstab something, you have to like land a hit first by doing like it's like you do a standard attack, and then whenever the hit lands, it backstabs. I didn't notice that. I could be crazy, but I did a lot of backstab testing, and I didn't notice like a pre-hit. It looked very Dark Souls 1 to me, where it was just instant. And I know that's not the news a lot of people want to hear, but that's what it seemed to me through my testing personally. So either take their word for it or my word for it. I don't know. That's entirely up to you guys. Parries. Parries are Dark Souls 1. 100%. I was actually parrying the world. They have the red knights that come and just charge you, and they throw out an attack like immediately. So I was just parrying them all day, like nonstop. I absolutely loved it. The parries are 100% Dark Souls 1. The window feels the same, even though it's a PvE window, so there's not much to say for that. But the animation and everything, it's so good. It's Dark Souls 1 animation 100%, and I'm so happy about that. It's very, you know how Dark Souls 1 animation is. It's very, it flows into the fight very nicely and keeps the pace up as opposed to the Dark Souls 2 one. So I really enjoyed that. And I also tested exhausting your stamina does not slower your swing speed as it does, I believe, in Dark Souls 2. Whenever you get your stamina really low, then the attack you throw out, if you don't have enough stamina, is very slow. That's not a thing. That is, I tested that specifically. That is not in Dark Souls 3. I'm about to open this little notebook I have. Sorry if you hear pages turning. I took notes, pen and ink. I haven't used pen and ink in years. Damn internet. Okay, I tested stored rolls mainly for that was for you, Orb. If you're listening to this, Urban Orb, who actually I just got to meet. I've known him for years. I got to meet him thanks to this trip to Germany. It was amazing. He's a fantastic person. Y'all should check out his challenge runs. I'll link them in the description, actually. If you want to see a Dark Souls 1 challenge run done right, like the only challenge run that has ever mattered, that will be in the description. I promise you will not be disappointed. Anyway, so yeah, stored rolls are back, which what that is whenever you roll and then you like hit B, like around right before or about midway through your roll, and it queues it up, and then whenever you come out of it, you roll again because it's like queued up to roll again. Those are back. Stored rolls are back. Riposte weapon swaps, which you parry and then you switch weapons in your riposte. Those are possible, which no surprise there. Let's see. I wanted to test counter damage. I couldn't seem to get it. I think I'm just bad, so I'm sorry. I wasn't able to test counter damage. I tried. I'm bad. I'm no homeless hollow like Barneysy Jones. I don't know. I'm not good with the windows for counter damage, so I'm sorry. I tried. Okay. Someone asked for me to test R1 and R2 follow-up attacks, like combos, like in Bloodborne, for instance, with the what is it, Ludwig's Holy Blade, with the straight sword. For instance, I believe you could do like a 5-fold attack or something. Well, if you're using something else, like the threaded cane, it has the 2-fold R1. So varying like attacks like that. Which I believe it may even have been in Dark Souls 2. I'm not sure. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. It seems to be back to Dark Souls 1, where like the long sword I had, it was just 1-2, 1-2. So as for the R2, I believe that was also like a single one. I don't think there was a follow-up. Don't take my word on that. Now it's fuzzy. I may not be remembering correctly, but yeah, for the most part, it's like Dark Souls 1. Just think of it like that. Okay. Estus speed and recovery. The Estus drinking, I would say it felt like Dark Souls 1, but people asked me about this, and I thought they were crazy until I noticed it myself, like looking for it specifically. If you drink Estus, your health bar doesn't like gradually go up. It's instantaneous. It's like Bloodborne in the sense where you stab it into your leg and instantly you have that extra HP. It's just boom, it's there. It's instantaneous. It's not like a gradual, like you chug and then you chug again and it speeds up the regen. It's instant, which provided there will be a way to prevent it, maybe with backstab punishes. I'm hoping it's not a problem. So nobody jumped to conclusions yet. We'll see. I know this community is just, there's one thing we do good, it's jumping to conclusions. So let's try to avoid that this time. Mid-swing combos with sword arts. And for anyone who doesn't know what sword arts are, think about Dark Souls 1 where you say you're two-handing a katana. Two-handed katana and you hit L1, you block. If you hit L2, you block. So basically what they did is they took that L2 mapping and they decided to tie it into a different moveset. So you two-hand your weapon, which you can do. You can press Y to like two-hand and go back to one-handing if you press it again. But basically, if you're two-handing and you hit L2, instead of it blocking, like L1 will block, instead of L2 blocking, it does what's called it was labeled on the loading screen as arts, but it was referred to in presentations as sword arts, and I think I also heard it referred to as battle arts, but I'm going to say sword arts. Anyway, you go into a different stance. Like with the long sword, your character holds up the straight sword or long sword or whatever you want to call it, and he points it at the enemy. It's called the ready stance, and then he gets like almost like thrusting attacks. And the way that works is you hold it while you're holding L2. You hit either R1 or no. R1 will just do a regular attack, and R2 does the special attack. At least with the great sword. The straight sword ready stance may have had something mapped to R1. I'm sorry, I don't remember. The great sword lunging stance that you do, if you were to hit R1, you just do a regular like swing with the great sword. But if you hit R2, you do like the special attack, and I think it had a follow up. Anyway, so basically, someone wanted me to test to see if you can like flow into that while you're, say you hit like, you go from like R1 to R1 to holding L2 to doing a sword art. It doesn't really flow too well with the weapons where you have to like change your stance. It may work well with the scimitars, but it definitely didn't work with the straight sword or the long sword, because your character repositions himself. The scimitars, you just start twirling, so it probably flows pretty well with the scimitars. I didn't check though. Omnidirectional. This was, oh sorry, I forgot I'm on a laptop and I'm like bumping into stuff. The omni, people wanted me to see if there's omnidirectional movement whenever you're locked on, and I'm gonna say no. The reason why I'm kind of confused is because I could roll like, I feel like I'd have to go back into Dark, even though I've been playing Dark Souls 1 like nonstop for like 2 months. I would have to go back to check it again, but like I'm just being cautious with what I say, because I know a lot of people will take it for fact, which most of it is, but or it all is as far as I'm concerned. I'm just being very careful with what I say. The movement whenever you're locked on, it's like Dark Souls 1, but I could go like diagonal. Like I even tested multiple times. I could roll like diagonal right, but my character, it was still like a forward roll. So I'm gonna say omnidirectional movement isn't a thing, because it wasn't like rolling, like even though I was able to roll diagonal in whatever direction I wanted, it I don't know, the however you define omnidirectional as, um, I was able to roll diagonally, but it was still a forward roll, if that makes any sense. I'm sorry. I don't know how better how much better to explain it. So you can move in all directions, but it's still it's not like Dark Souls 2. So it may be something in between. I'm sorry. Anyway, continuing on. I know I probably just confused a lot of y'all. I'm sorry about that. You cannot run while locked on. Tested that. That's not a thing. Fainting. Someone wanted me to test fainting, where you like animation cancel, like as you're like hitting R1, and you like roll to cancel the attack and maybe throw off your opponent. That's not a thing. You can't do that. If you attack, it will follow through. I already talked about the gestures. You can't. I didn't see any that you were able to like to move in like Bloodborne. Maybe you get some later. I hope they have the sit gesture again. I absolutely love that. But you can roll out of gestures, so that's good. So you don't get backstab while you're bowing to someone or something. And they did mix in. There are Dark Souls 2 gestures in there, like the what is it? The dual bow, I think, where you like do the one-handed bow, like you put your hand like on your stomach and you bow properly. Not proper bow, but yeah, I think it's the dual bow. That is confirmed in it. So it seems they took some of the best of both worlds for the gestures. Now this is interesting. Okay, this is something that I haven't listened to much of other people's input on Dark Souls 3 and the testing they did, but I don't know if this has been tested. someone wanted me to test iframes on backsteps. This is very interesting because I tested it, and there didn't seem to be iframes in the sense where you don't take damage, but it gave you infinite poise. So basically everything was staggering me. I couldn't find anything that would not stagger me. So it's like I had very low poise. If poise is a thing, I had very low poise on both the characters that we were able to choose. So whenever I was backstepping through attacks, I was able to backstep through them, and it wasn't staggering me. You know, I would continue the backstep animation. I took damage. I would take the normal amount of damage, and the weird part was it made a sound, like a distinct sound, almost like like the weapon like brushing off of metal. I don't know how to portray it, but yeah, it was as if it was like it had its own specific sound, which I found very odd. So yeah, whenever you try to backstep and like use backstep iframes, you're still gonna take damage, but you will poise through the attack. So there's that. Um, I thought there was varying kick speeds at first, which this was just something I marked down for myself. There's not. Completely ignore that. The movement and the combos feel very fluid. It's like Dark Souls 1. They did say that in the presentation, they did say that they that Miyazaki definitely upped the speed of the movement and the gameplay, because they said they wanted the player to be able to react to be able to have more control and be able to react appropriately in more like intense situations. So basically everything's been bumped up a notch. Not Bloodborne speeds. You know, no need to freak out. It's as if I can only describe it as if Dark Souls 1 movement and combat was bumped up about 1.5 times the original speed. Maybe even 1.3 if I want to be cautious. Um, so yeah, it's nothing drastic. I almost, whenever I heard people mention it, I thought they were completely wrong, but they confirmed in the interview that was the case, or in the presentation. And speaking of which, the greatsword moveset is it's the R1. It pulls like from the right to the left, you know, just like Dark Souls 1, but it's faster. It is. So they even like increase like the speed on that. Now I don't know if they just increase the speed on everything overall, but in terms of movement, yes, and the great sword specifically, the R1s are significantly faster. So yeah, let's see. Someone asked me to test the stamina drain on shields. I I don't know how much stability the shields had. There's no inventory, so I'm gonna just say it seemed like Dark Souls 1. Um, Another thing I wanted to bring up. Uh, I heard people say that sword arts are tied to which shield you have, and no, that's completely wrong. Um, for instance, someone mentioned, I don't know if it was Ty in them, but somebody mentioned that the buff where your character gets this buff where like it looks like his hands like glow with like fire and you get like a damage buff or whatever, that was tied to the axe. That had nothing to do with the shield. Um, so yeah, the shields don't have anything to do with the sword arts other than the fact that there is now offensive and defensive shields. Um, if you look on any of the gameplay you've probably seen, and I believe I'll be showing my boss fight at the end of this Sunlight Blade. On the first day that we were there, they weren't so strict with the phones being out, and Sunlight Blade was right by me, and he filmed my first encounter with the boss. So And it's about halfway through, so I apologize, but that's pretty much the only footage we got. So because the next days they really cracked down on it. But I'll show that at the end, and you can see for yourself on the shield. If it's a shield that you can parry with, it will have a shield icon next to it. So it's like a defensive shield. So you have the parry. If it's one that you can't parry with, which kite shields, or at least the one that was in the demo, you can't parry with it. Even though it looks like a smaller shield, instead of parrying, whenever you hit L2, it does the sword art for whichever weapon you have equipped, which I notice whenever you use the sword art for, say, the greatsword, you instantly two-hand. Like, the sword art involves two-handing, so there's no one-handing and two-handing sword arts. So it's almost as if it just bypasses the shield and goes into, like, the two-handed sword art mechanic. So yeah, if it has a little sword next to the shield, like a little sword icon for offense, then that means you can use sword arts while having that shield equipped. So yeah, that's how you'll know if your shield can parry or use a sword art or whatever the case is. But anyway, yeah, so sword arts are not tied to the type of shield, other than the fact that certain shields will allow them to happen. Stamina and running. It's just like the other Souls games, where you run, you drain your stamina entirely, and you have to wait a bit before it lets you start going in. I don't think I tried like rolling to like speed up the process, but I would imagine it works. It works like Dark Souls 1 in terms of like exhausting your stamina and then having to wait for it to fill up a little bit to run again. I tried to test the direct hit system, but I couldn't make it happen with any of the weapons we had. Like, I was trying to hit with the greatsword, like the tip of the greatsword, and then like try hitting with like around the base of the greatsword, but it didn't change the damage numbers. I would need like a halberd or something to really test that properly to see if there's a direct hit system. So I wasn't able to make that happen, unfortunately. I also tried testing with the axe, like the middle of the axe, and try and get really close and see if I could catch the base of the axe. It didn't matter. Either it was too small or there isn't a direct hit system. But I think we'll only be able to know whenever we get like a halberd or something we could test with. Someone wanted me to try to buff the scimitars. The Legion scimitars are essentially two weapons in one. The way that works is you pull out the two scimitars, like you get them, and if you're one-handing, then you have like, say, your shield in your left hand and the scimitar in your right hand. And the other scimitar is on your left side, like on your hip. If you two-hand, if you push Y to two-hand, you pull out the other scimitar. So you can't like two-hand it Ouroboros style. Instead, you're just holding both scimitars and doing like two-fold attacks with R1, L1, and then whenever you do that, you can also do like sword arts and stuff, which make you spin. The sword art is actually called spin. Not the most creative thing, but it gets the point across. So someone wanted me to test if you buff the single scimitar, will the buff be applied to both of them? And the answer is yes. If you buff one scimitar, like say you're one-handing it and you buff it, and then you push Y to pull out the other scimitar, it will suddenly catch on fire. So you will, assuming you use the charcoal resin. So yeah, applying the buff to one scimitar also applies it to the other. Because whenever you think about it, they're essentially on the same weapon slot. So it does make sense. Anyway, someone wanted me to test layered sound effects, which I was a bit confused by that, but what they mean is how in Bloodborne, for instance, whenever you're swinging and you do like R1, 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 there's different sounds, while in I think Dark Souls 1, if you do like R1, 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 it's the same sound. There was different sounds for the different swings. So there was like if I were to R1 3 times, it was a different sound, a different sound, a different sound, and then I think on the fourth R1 the sequence repeated. So it's not like they were like randomized; they were like in order of how they played. But if that, I tried to test it for whoever asked that on Reddit. If that is layered sound effects, where it wasn't just the same sound, it was 3 different sounds on the 3 R1s in a row, then yeah, layered sound effects are in there. Someone wanted me to see if I can't talk, I'm sorry. If delaying your swing would cause stamina regen. So you R1, you wait a second without dropping the quote unquote combo or whatever, and then you R1 again. Like if in between that you'll regenerate stamina, you do not. You do not regenerate stamina between swings unless you just, the move ends and you start to regenerate again. So no, that is not a thing. Someone want to know the amount of times you can roll, which I don't know exactly what that's going to tell us, because we don't know how much endurance we had, or whatever the hell it's going to be called, probably endurance, or how much stamina we have, like number wise. But for the sake of argument, both characters that we had in the build were able to roll 5 times in a row. So there you go. So I want to know if you can parry while two-handing the greatsword, like quote-unquote super parrying from Dark Souls 2. You cannot. You two-hand the greatsword and you hit L2 and you go into the lunge stance. So super parries are not a thing. This is very interesting. The way R2s work, jumping R2s they don't. If you push toward an R2, you don't do anything, except you'll probably throw out a regular R2. The way jumping R2s work now the way they work, you have to be in a sprint and hit R2. So running R2s, you'll be running, you hit R2, and it does like the jump, like the toward R2 of like Dark Souls 1, just I guess in a running animation. So yeah, they took out the toward R2 jumping and replaced it and tied it into running R2. And so that being said, this is really really cool, I think. If you backstep into R2, it does the jump. Like it does the same as like the sprinting R2 or the Dark Souls 1 toward an R2. So backstep into R2 leaps. So that's really cool in my opinion. Speaking of which, the jump button was tied to L3 by default, and I believe Dreaded Cone and them, when they played it in California, confirmed that you can change it to circle. But I didn't check personally. But for me, it was tied to L3, so we do know that there are that the possibility of multiple options for tying the jump button to are there. Good old Ouroboros wanted me to test Estus movement. You are able to move at the start of drinking Estus. Like I can click to chug and then like turn and walk like a step, and then it ends. So it's not very far, but he even said, he told me on Twitter, he's like, I don't care if it's not very far, just if you can move it all, let me know. You can. You start to chug, you could take about 1 step, if even, and then you stop to finish your sip. So yeah. Someone asked about weapon sheaths. I didn't see any weapon sheaths. I'm also hoping that is just a something to do with the demo and the game not being completed, but there were no weapon sheaths in sight. I want them to come back because fashion. So yeah, no sheaths that I saw. Someone want to know if you Repose somebody while locked on. Will the lock on break as the repose is finishing, like in Dark Souls 1? And the answer is yes. It works the same as Dark Souls 1. And I also heard Dredicone mention that bonfires do not, and I'm not meaning to like, I'm sorry, Ty, if you're listening to this. I'm not like trying to call you out. I'm just correcting information. That bonfires don't replenish your sword art points, which for anyone who doesn't know, below the health bar and such, you have a little number similar to like bullets in Bloodborne, and as you use sword arts, that number starts to drop. So I believe Ty said that you could only replenish them by death, and that's not true. Whenever you sit at the bonfire, it brings the number back up to 20. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify there. And I believe that's everything that I had to cover. The game, the overall feel of everything, it was, I absolutely loved it. It feels like Dark Souls 1 DLC basically, which to me is great. And it's like Dark Souls 1 in Bloodborne detail universe essentially. It was fantastic. The animations are back to like Dark Souls 1 quality, where for instance, if you go into the lunge stance and you do a rising attack and you hit the enemy, they will go like spiraling into the air and then crashing down again, like arms flailing all over the place, rather than in Dark Souls 2 where you golf swing somebody and they go from like standing up to laying on their back to sliding on their back. The animations are back to being like very, very in depth and detailed. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm getting hoarse. What else? They brought back, which I'm sure many of y'all know, what are essentially the Red Eye Knights from Demon Souls. They're extremely aggressive. Oh, this is amazing. I went to Backstab fish one of them. I tried to loop around him, locked on, to backstab him, just like you would just like Dark Souls 1 has always taught us. And what he did next blew my mind. He, with his shield, he reached backwards, like over his shoulder, and just smacked me in the face with his shield. He did like a backwards shield bash, like right to my mouth, and just punished me for backstab fishing him. And I tried it multiple times, and I mean, eventually, you can land it, but they will attempt to punish you by reaching back with their shield and doing like an over the shoulder backward shield bash to just get you the hell off of their back. It was amazing. It just I did not see it coming. So yeah, that was fantastic. Trying to think if there was anything else. I don't know. Basically, what I have for y'all though is my first attempt at the boss. Like I said, Sunlight Blade was able to record it. This was on the first day. The second day, we weren't allowed to. So I'm gonna show y'all that, and I will do commentary over it. You really don't want to hear the sounds because there's no game audio. Instead, you just hear very loud Gamescom, and then about halfway through the video, Star Wars music starts playing in the background because Gamescom. So even though I guess it is kind of epic during the fight, it's not the best. But yeah, I will do commentary over that and walk y'all through basically how I felt about the boss and everything. So I hope I tested a good bit for y'all, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. Alright, this is some footage Sunlight Blade took on the first day of me on my first attempt against the boss. She's already halfway dead. I apologize. But yeah, her movements are very odd, so it's hard to judge. And if you notice, she has what I believe to be an ash sword that she pulls out about halfway through the fight and gains a fully like changed moveset. You can also see the shield icon that lets you know that is a defense shield that you can parry with, and then you see the sword arts at the top left. And the Estus flask, actually, you could see it draining as you use it, which was pretty cool. Yeah, she does a lot of twirls, as you'll see here in a moment, and she tries to punish you with that. She stabs her sword into the ground and drags it across. It's really cool. But I didn't manage to beat her. Spoilers. I got this was the closest attempt I got to. There's the spins. And I fought her like 6 times, and I just couldn't get it again. Sunlight Blade managed to beat her, but I was a scrub and wasn't able to. Whenever you do beat her, it just says victory achieved, thank you for playing, so you don't miss out on much. That attack right there, she has a different variation where she thrusts it in a second time and does a second blast, and it can really throw you off. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed everything, and I'm just going to let the greed play out here. So thank y'all for watching, and I hope I answered a lot of y'all's questions. I wish I had more gameplay, but fortunately this is all we got. So thank you for watching, everybody. I'll talk to y'all later.